In today's education news, with all these reforms promised from Ofsted, is 2025 going to be the year where we see that much needed change? I wouldn't hold your breath. Yet this week, the new head of Ofsted was talking to an education committee of MPs about all these reforms. And for me, it just reads like it's more of the same from Ofsted, all fart, no poo, and more just believing their own BS. Now, I will link in this Schools Week article if you want to read through everything that he says. I'm not going to take that time. I just want to pull out a couple of points. He goes on to talk about how these new report cards will be so much better than what they did before. A consultation on these are going to be starting. But it's really important to remember that when it came to getting rid of these one-word toxic Ofsted grades that everyone in education knew were never a true fair reflection, such high stakes, caused so much unnecessary stress, contributing to the retention crisis we're facing in education, Ofsted weren't the ones who got rid of them. If it was up to Ofsted, they would still have these toxic one-word gradings. Ofsted don't think there was anything wrong with them. They don't. Whatever they say, they don't. Even when the new guy came in and he did all the PR and said all the right things and he went, we want to hear your voice. We want to hear what you think of Ofsted. So I've got this big listen. Guess what was never mentioned in any of the questions on that big listen? The toxic one-word gradings. It was only when the government backed them into a corner and said, you got to get rid of them, that Ofsted went, oh, if we have to. And if you're to believe what's been put out there about what it's going to get replaced with, this dreadful sort of colour chart that looks like they've gone to a Nando's restaurant, looked at the menu and gone, well, I've got a clever idea. It ain't going to get better. What really worried me was his comments about Caversham Primary. This is the school that Ruth Perry was head teacher at, which after an inspection, she took her own life. He said, there is no suggestion that the lead inspector did a bad job or did anything wrong whatsoever. Is he being serious? I just want to share a few tweets from this thread from Edmund Barnett Ward on Twitter. Please do give him a follow. He's a parent at Caversham Primary, and he has been very outspoken about everything that happened. And he says, how can he honestly say that when the evidence presented before court showed that it was mocking and unpleasant? The HMI presented evidence that was contradictory by other first-hand witnesses of his inspection. Again, this is taken from the coroner's report, saying that parts of the Ofsted inspection were conducted in a manner which lacked fairness, respect and sensitivity, quoting directly from Ofsted's own code of conduct, and that the inspection was at times rude and intimidating. There is no suggestion that that lead inspector did a bad job or did anything wrong. When Sir Martin came into the role, I was willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. Surely he can't be worse than Amanda Spielman, and I don't think he is. But clearly, as he's spending more time in the role, he is very much believing in the Ofsted narrative that they can do no wrong, they don't need to answer to anyone, and they think as time goes by, they can keep talking down what happened at Caversham Primary and sort of wash their hands of responsibility. But they were found guilty in a coroner's report to have contributed to the death of Ruth Perry. We cannot let that be forgotten. Now, the reason I feel Ofsted will never truly change and there will not be the reforms that are needed is that they know they can get away with it. They hold us to account, and as teachers, obviously, with the job that we do, we need that level of accountability. But who holds Ofsted to account? And I think what's needed is an independent complaint system. But he taught that down. He tried to make it out like, no, we don't need to be held accountable here, because if you've got this independent complaints procedure, that's going to be bad on you teachers. That's going to be a burden on schools. What he says here is if there was an independent complaints process, it would mean investigators would have to return to school to carry out their own inspections. He says that would be a burden on schools, would it? So let's say you feel that you've had a really unfair inspection by a group of inspectors who have come in with an agenda, stuck with it, not allowed you to prove otherwise, and you feel that that's been hard done to and you want to make a complaint. You go to an independent complaints process and they come and visit. Would that be a burden on you, or would you be quite happy to go through that process if it meant the inspection could then be changed? Well, guess what happens if you use the current complaints procedure? Guess what you get rewarded with? Another inspection, but this time from Ofsted, who are marking their own homework. They will never alter the inspection judgments. All they do is either gather more evidence or re-inspect. And this tweet in that thread sums it up perfectly. All systems based on human judgment are fallible and will go wrong at some point. Unless the people subject to that system have a cast iron guarantee that any grievance they have will be independently assessed, there can be and should not be any trust in that system. And this is why I think nothing is going to change with Ofsted, and it will continue to pay lip service and not learn from the tragedy of Ruth Perry's death.